Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter today. Today we are talking about generating donation statements. So we are going to use the handout that I'm going to send out to you all right now. And it's really more than a handout. It's kind of a little book actually. It's got roughly 40 pages, but it really goes in depth on donation statements. So I would highly recommend downloading this, print it out, probably front to back because it's a little long, but this is going to be a great tool for you to use with generating your statements this year. So a couple things I want to point out. The first section is going to cover generating your statements, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So the step 1 tab, the step 2 tab, how to get who you need for your donation statements, how to make sure everyone's printing, sort order, things like that. That's what we're talking about today. The next section looks like pages 16 through 18. That talks about donation receipts. So if your church is in Canada, that is going to be the section you want to follow for generating your statements for the, I think it's the Canada Tax Agency. I can't remember specifically the name, but obviously it's different than what is here in the United States. So that is the section for donation receipts for Canada. Then there's a section on the statement designer, which we aren't going to have time to go over today. There is another webinar on customizing donation statements with the designer. So if you want to watch the video, you can find that on the Resource Center. But that is included in this book. And then the last section of this book talks about troubleshooting, so different problems that you might run into or common issues we've seen with that people might struggle with their statements, and then emailing. So again, we're not going to have time to go over emailing donation statements. There is another webinar on that, but it's included in this book as well. So pretty much anything donation statement related you can find in this nice little manual that I've attached for you. All right, let's get started. The very first thing that I want to point out about donation statements, and the most important thing, is going to be setting people up to actually receive a donation statement. So there is a checkbox that has to be checked in donations for someone to receive a donation statement. Also, if you find you're generating your donation statements, you know someone has giving, you know they're meeting the criteria, but for some reason the program isn't printing a donation statement for them, it's probably because this box right here, this receive statement box, is not checked for that individual or that giving unit, okay? So make sure, like right here on Nina, because this box isn't checked, she will not get a donation statement this way. You want to make sure you check this box, okay? There's no check and save, just check it, it'll stick. You can click somewhere else on the screen if you want, but whomever needs to have a statement needs to have this receive statement box checked, okay? Now, to explain this a little bit further, Nina gives a loan, okay? So if we go to this giver number tab, we can see that gives with family is not checked. So she gives by herself, okay? But if we go down here to Bill and Donna, you can see they share the same number and they're both checked gives with family, okay? If we go back to the name tab, the receive statement box is grayed out. I can't click in there. So because they give as a family, we have to find them on the Families and Groups tab right here and make sure their receive statement box is active and checked here. Okay, so to summarize, if they give individually, make sure their receive statement box is checked on the individual givers tab. If they are checked gives with family, you need to go to the Families and Groups tab, find their family name, and make sure the receive statement box is checked there, okay? It's really important kind of first step. As you put people into the database by default, that box is checked. But again, if you're like, man, I get a couple calls like this a year. Someone calls in and there's like, I cannot get the statement to print. I don't know why. It's probably that receive statement box, okay? All right, let's move on to actually generating our statements. So you can get to donation statements one of two ways. You can get to it right here in this little shortcuts box, or you can go up to reports and export and click donation statement there. Step one is going to open first. Step one in all of our reporting in Church Windows is always about who is going to be included in the report. What criteria, who do we need to see on the report itself? This doesn't have anything to do with the layout of the donation statement. This is simply who we are generating statements for. If I come into this screen on step one and I change absolutely nothing and just click next, by default, my date range is going to be for the whole year, okay? So anyone with giving, so that criteria as well, it has to be giving within this date range. Those are going to be the people that are going to be included when we go to print statements. If we just click next, if we change nothing else here, okay? You can also go up to this Edit People Selection Criteria section, and you can see right here, it tells us it's including inactive people. This doesn't mean it's inactive for every single person. Doesn't mean every single person in the database that's inactive is going to get a statement. All it means is that if you have an inactive person that gave within 2023, they will be included to get a donation statement, okay? For a lot of churches coming in here, leaving the criteria as is, verifying the sort tab is what I want. I want them sorted in giver number order, or you could do name or zip code and hitting next. Most of the time that works for most of the people that I talk to, okay? However, there are some other different querying options that you can use. Some people I talk to want a criteria of either given or pledged. That's another popular one. If that's the criteria I want to come down here to add giving and pledging selection criteria. As you can see, here's our default set, only those who gave within this date range, but I can change this. I can say I want only those who gave or only those who pledged. Okay, so that's going to give me people who gave but maybe didn't pledge, or it's going to give me people who pledged but maybe haven't given yet. Okay, that's what the or symbolizes. It gives you either or. They have to meet either one of these options when we put the or in the middle. Okay. If you want to choose only those with giving from, you can set a low end. So if you want people who gave either $100 or more, you could do that. If you leave it on only those who gave, that means they have to have given at least 1 penny to be included. Down here at the bottom, same with pledging. Only those who pledge, they have to at least pledge a penny. Only those with pledging from, you could put in a low end here for a range. You can uncheck no upper limit, and you can put a full range in here for for pledging, excuse me. Only those who did not pledge, or you can go even further and you can choose, I only want people of a specific pledging type. Say I only want my quarterly pledgers or my annual pledgers. You can check or uncheck these boxes to really get the specific criteria you want. Over here, you also have the option to select those who have met their pledges or who have not met their pledges. Lots of customizing options in here, but again, if we close out and we just open this, we don't change anything, we're only going to get people who gave within this date range here, okay? Sort tab, I'm going to put it back to giver name because I want alphabetical order, and I'm going to hit next. All right. So again, step one's your criteria. Who do you need to see on that report, okay, or on those donation statements? Step two, have a lot of options here as well. The first thing on the options tab you have to specify is your statement layout. What do you want your statement to look like? This template windowed envelope seems to be the most popular one. There are some other templates in here. There's 2 Canada options. There's a tri-fold mailer. So if you want to print it on that perforated paper where you have to kind of rip the top and the sides off, you can choose this option. There's the windowed envelope with a no tax deductible total section. Okay. So it's kind of up to you which windowed envelope you're wanting to see. We're going to go with just the standard one so you guys can get an idea of what that looks like. Down here at the bottom, this is your global memo. This is going to be a note that's going to print at the bottom of everyone's donation statement, okay? With this statement layout, you already have an approved IRS statement on the donation statement itself. The global memo would be an additional comment or note that you want to add. Typically, I see this used as thank you for your continuing generosity. If you have any questions about your statement, please contact so-and-so at this number or this email. Typically, that's what the global memo is used for. But again, it's just a note at the bottom, so you can add whatever information you want. Ones you've previously made, if you hit the down arrow, they'll be stored down here. If you want to make a new one or edit one of these, hit this little memo icon here. And that's going to allow you to make a new one and hit add, or come down to the bottom, click in an old one, and make changes here if you want to. Okay. If you don't want to use a global memo, if you're content with what the IRS statement says, you can simply hit the X, leave that box blank, and then move forward. Okay. 3 check boxes are next here. Warn if a statement spans more than one page. All that's going to do is when you click print, it's going to tell you some of your statements are more than one page. I find this beneficial if you need to know like page breaks or how many of those things happen. Honestly, to me, I don't really care if the statement spans more than one page or not, so I typically leave that unchecked. But again, maybe you need to know that that option is available for you. If you are not a pledging church, okay, this is really important. If you are not a pledging church, check this box here, and that will remove anything that involves pledging from this default windowed envelope, okay? So if you're non-pledging church, you don't have to go in and create your own specific layout. Just choose this one and then check the do not show pledging information checkbox, okay? There's another checkbox here. It says do not show separate tax deductibility detail sections. On this default layout, you have the option to show in the detail section, so where it lists out every single donation within that date range, it can group it by donations that are tax deductible and donations that were set up as non-tax deductible. If that's not something you care to see, you can check this box and it's not going to separate it out that way. If you want to see it separate, say you track like bookstore purchases or maybe somebody bought a dinner for something and you do need to see that split out separately, then you could leave that box unchecked, okay? One of the nice things about the donation statement is you can really kind of play with layouts, play with this stuff, and then you can just print it. And then it's going to show you a print preview, and then you can decide if you like how it looks or if you don't, okay? Lower half of the screen here, this is going to show you everybody that's going to be getting a donation statement. You have a print checkbox here, and you have an email checkbox here, okay? If you're not worrying, you don't want to email your donation statements, you're going to come down here to the bottom and click uncheck email for all, and that will remove all those checks. Print, that's all we're doing. Leave all the print boxes checked, and there is a check print for all. So these buttons down across the bottom will do this on a mass scale, okay? Over here on the right, you have this account summary order. So in the center section of your donation statements, you can set what order those giving accounts are going to print in. So if you have a very specific order you want those accounts in, you can come in here and adjust accordingly, okay? All right, let's take a peek at our donation statement here. So you can get an idea of kind of what we're working with. Let me get it on this correct screen. Okay, so here is an example of a template windowed envelope. So this is just one of our default layouts. This is what this is going to look like. The layout here for the person's name and address, if you do trifold with this, it will fit perfectly into a standard size windowed envelope, saving you from having to print labels. So that's why I think a lot of people go with the windowed envelope option. Here is your church information as you had it set in your sysinfo section in administration when you got the software. Over here to the top right, giver number. That's going to be included by default. If you don't use giver numbers, it'll be blank, or you can go into the designer and remove the field. Here is your statement date range, which we set back on step 1. And then down here at the bottom, this is that total given tax deductible, total given non-tax deductible. There is another layout that will omit this non-tax deductible section. Okay, so if you don't care to see it separated like this, you don't enter any giving that's non-tax deductible, you would choose that other template that we have in the Dropbox for you. But like I said, if you enter stuff where people buy books or people are buying meals or something and you do track that in donation as non-tax deductible, that total will print separate up here for you. Okay. Moving down, your statement is going to be made up of, let me zoom out just a skosh, 3 sections, okay? Here is your first section. This is that detail section we talked about. That checkbox that says if you want to see things listed out as tax deductible or non-tax deductible that you could check or uncheck, that will affect whether this prints or not. If you do have any non-tax deductible options, you will see non-tax deductible here and then the gifts listed below, okay? But this person only has tax deductible donations listed. This is every date that someone made a donation, and then here is the actual giving account that the money went to. Again, this is just sample data, so it's a little crazy that you'd have 4 separate gifts to building fund for $100, but all the giving from the year will be listed here, okay? Next section is our account summary section. This is going to give you each giving account that they gave to listed along this side, and then here is their total given, okay? Down here at the bottom, we have the quarterly section. This is going to show each month and then each quarter total and then a grand total here at the bottom. Keep in mind, in the report designer, you can customize this layout as much as you want. If you don't care to see the quarterly section, you can remove it. If you have a lot of people who give once a week and this detail section is giant, you can hide the detail section so you only see the account summary section. Again, there's another webinar on all that customizing in the donation statement, or you can look further back in this book for that information, okay? If we scroll down at the bottom, here is that only benefits provided tangible religious services. This is that IRS statement that has to be printed on here. This is IRS approved, but this will be on everybody's statement. If you chose to put in a global memo, that would be printing right down here, okay? So let's go back and let's make a couple changes and then let's look at the preview again. So right now we chose to not show pledging information. I'm going to remove that. So we're going to act as though we are a pledging church. And then I'm also going to put in, let's say, end of year comment. I don't really know what this is, but let's see what that looks like, okay? And let's print this one and let's see the difference here. All right, so this section is the same. It's still showing us the different accounts that they gave to, but this section down here gives us a lot more information. It's giving us if they had pledged. Let me see if I can find a pledger actually. Here we go. We're on Evan Bernard here. So you can see that they have a pledge. This is the date range they pledged for. Here's their frequency. Here's how much they pledge per that frequency, so $300 a month. Here's their total pledged amount based on this date range that we're using. Any prepaid or prior giving we can see is at 0. Amount given is at 25, and they're over under. They're here, so they got a little work to do before the end of the year, okay? And then here is that quarterly section. It's separated by pledged, non-pledged, and total. Here's the IRS statement, and now, obviously this message is a little old, here is where that global memo is printing, okay? Pretty straightforward stuff. Let me go back. I know we're running tight on time. Statement Designer is right here. If you want to go in and do some customizing, you can hit the Statement Designer option here. That's going to open up the grid where you can go in and drag things around, move things, hide things, add your logo, whatever you want to do. Relabel fields and individual name options. Some people don't like the word pledge. Some people want to use estimate of giving. You can click in here and change this and create a custom label. So anywhere the word pledge would print, you're going to see that custom label, that alternate word that you choose to have. And then there's some other options over here as well for printing your statements. All right, here's your email tab. If you find you want to set up emailing, it's in the back of the book that the handout that I attached, or there's a video on the Resource Center. Organization information, if you find you don't want to use your default organization information, you can hit the plus and create a new one. Maybe you merge another church, maybe you're printing donation statements, you need to adjust the heading, you can do that here. Giving pledging date range, this is the date range for which you would like to see giving and pledging on the report. I don't typically suggest people come in here and fudge this. This can be helpful if you're running like a quarterly or a half a year statement, but it's the end of the year, so typically you're going to want to stick with the whole year for tax purposes, okay? And then back to your options tab, this is where we started, all right? One last thing I want to show, and then I'll wrap it up here. This personalized statement memo or personalized email message. If you have a specific note that you want to give just to Miss Carolyn, you can click and type right in here. This note will only show on Carolyn's statement down at the bottom next to the global memo. Again, if you have a specific note that you want just for one person or just for a specific person, you type right in that personalized statement memo and it's only going to show up on them. If you're emailing, you obviously need to type it over there in the email message box. Okay? All right, that is everything that I wanted to go over with you guys today.